few people asked me to make a video about Reb Meir Kahane, Hashem Avenger's Blood. And I tried once, and I guess YouTube rejected it, saying it's too long, but it's only 11 minutes and 50 seconds. They claim they could take up to 20 minutes. But I'll give you the short version. He was basically a rabbi. He became a rabbi, an ordained rabbi. He was born to a religious family. And he spoke out very loudly about that the guiding law in Israel and the state of Israel should be the Torah, and that we shouldn't be embarrassed to say that we're here because God wants us here. And he believed very much in the Jewish right of self-defense. He had the famous slogan attributed to him, "Every Jew with a 22." And he was murdered by his enemies. He would speak publicly often in America and in Israel. He actually at one point formed I think in 1980, formed something called the Kach Party in Israel, his own political party. He actually won a seat in the Knesset, in the governing party governing body of Israel. However, he was wildly unpopular with the secular government there, many times speaking only to himself and the people transcribing his speeches for posterity's sake, according to records that we have. He was assassinated in November of 1990. The person I believe who assassinated him was released. I don't think they ever found enough evidence, and later he went on to make a much bigger terrorist attack. And then his children were also, he had a son, he was married, and a family, they were also murdered. May Hashem avenge their blood too. And he was known at the time as a controversial figure. This was before, really the Gulf War. I think a little before the Gulf War, and definitely before the Intifada, the uprisings from our half brothers, the Arabs, and he was seen as very controversial. And I think it's interesting, if he were an American, his message would simply be, God gave us the right to this land. We should defend it with everything we have. I think he'd be one of the greatest patriots of all time. I think he would be a national hero, and I think especially if he was killed and seen as a martyr, he would go down as one of the most famous prophets/saints that we ever had. His speech before he was murdered, it's very hard to listen to people say, because he actually references his own death, that how it will happen, or it will happen shortly. He once said, when asked if he's a prophet, he said, "I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet," which is of course a line from Amos the prophet. Later the people of the generation, when they were canonizing Judaism anyway, decided that yes, Amos, you are a prophet. But still, they put in this line to show you that sometimes even the prophet will be mistaken about who he is or what he is. He was a God-fearing Jew. He spoke his mind in a generation when political correctness was running amok, and when really only the other side of this debate was able to freely speak their minds. While it was okay for the greatest villain of our generation, Yasser Arafat, may Hashem erase his name, with his bloodthirsty rhetoric of, wipe the Jews off the map, kill the Jews, they have no reason to be here, they have no right to be here, we will overcome the Zionist entity, etc., etc. Of course, the world responds in kind by giving him the Nobel Peace Prize at one point, similar to Jimmy Carter and Adolf Hitler, and Hashem erased their names. But either way, so you wouldn't know how evil he was, and of course when he dies he gets respect from every single major world leader, as if he was someone to be respected. Meanwhile, this was a man who espoused terrorism. This was a man who commanded and directed people in terrorist acts. He himself would have done more if he was a little more brave, but he just felt it was brave to have other people blow themselves up instead of himself going to blow himself up. A man who even, upon death, they couldn't kill him. It was seen as not right. The poor man wanted to go for a religious observance to Bethlehem or something, and the Israelis wouldn't let him. They had him confined to his bunker, his final bunker. And man, did they get heat for that. They wouldn't let him go for Christmas, as if this was a religious person. But anyway, not to get off topic, so Reb Meir Kahane, Hashem avenge his blood, was someone who saw through the secular world and understood that what's eternal is actually Torah, and what's transient is secular society and the judgment of mankind. And he was unabashed about talking in the language of the Torah to people who literally had no God. And he did so again in a day and age when there was this universal movement of political correctness, which I've said before and I'll say it again, is rarely political and never correct, because you're always better off just saying how you feel and not trying to censor yourself to appease others. If you try to please people, you're not going to please anyone. But this was someone who saw that, even when other people in his generation didn't. Later, after his death, you'll see signs now in Israel spray painted Kahane Tzedek, Kahane was right, and people see now the validity of his words, the importance of self-defense if you live in the Jewish homeland, or anywhere really. I brought this question up to some famous rabbis here, like in Crown Heights, why we're not allowed to carry guns on the Sabbath. They get attacked. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you have to understand when you read about it in Shmeis, and you understand this could be. I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old daughter living in Crown Heights. When I see that there's people just literally jumping these kids, and just beating them up, and it's on the Sabbath, and they claim, they ask for the wallet, and they claim not to know that we don't carry on the Sabbath, but it's either coming out of sheer hatred or sheer ignorance. Either way, I would just like them to know that every single Jew is carrying a gun, and then I want to see the hate crimes continue. Then it takes a brave man at that point. To beat up a guy because he's not in the gym like you are, and he's not a violent animal, and doesn't believe violence is the solution to anything, is instead choosing to use his intellect. To beat such a man up, believe me, it's not a challenge. I would like for these guys to accidentally pick on the people who are penitent, and knew how to fight from previous days. That, I think, would be a fair fight. But generally, they somehow come across the real God-fearing individuals who have never raised their fist to anyone in their life because they know that's not what God wants. Either way, it'd be nice to get the rumor out that, Jews carry guns, and especially on the Sabbath. And if you want to pickpocket us, it's going to be do it at your own peril, because we know how to defend ourselves. This was his message to the world. I think it's unfortunately still timely. You would think now it's 5769, now it's 19 years after this man's death. Maybe the message wore out. Maybe it's not important anymore. We've obviously reached a point of world peace, and we've ended economic disparity, and we're now a much more enlightened society. And it simply hasn't happened. And now more than ever, especially in times there's even a small incursion by the IDF into any part of, to try to clean up their part of the world, anti-Semitism is on the rise. They make swastikas on our houses of prayer, and they just find ways to pick on Jews no matter where they are. So I would just like the rabbis to come out and say especially Orthodox people who are easily identifiable as Jews, but every Jew should and has their responsibility of carrying a gun in self-defense. This, I think, would be an amazing way to stop anti-Semitism, to nip it in the bud, and to let people know, you want to pick on us, fine, but we have a gun. So at least it's going to be a fair fight. And a lot of times they have a gun. So at least it's going to be a fair fight. And then let's go from there. And this is, you're hearing this from someone who doesn't believe in violence, who doesn't believe violence solves anything. But this is Reb Meir Kahane's point to the world. Is it doesn't matter what you believe in. It matters what your enemy believes in. If these are people who are going to resort to violence and guns and fists and to threaten you, to push you off of your spot on the map, how are you going to respond in kind with praying for peace? With going to that, I've been asking for a bracha that your son should be safe in Israel. He was a realist. He was a practical man, and his idea was, yes, every Jew at the 22, let's defend ourselves. Part of praying for God for protection, it says God helps those who help themselves. His point to the Jewish people was defend yourselves, protect yourselves, because it's one thing to rely on a miracle. The Gemara, there's a machlekes in my opinion. I am the side of you're not supposed to rely on a miracle. It's supposed to be practical. It's supposed to take action. So this was his message to the world, and it's kind of sad the way his premature demise. I think he was under 60 years old, and for speaking publicly in America, he got killed for expressing his opinion, which actually is a First Amendment right. But that's what happens sometimes to great people. Okay, I hope this helps, and I'm open to any comments. If there's obviously anything deemed inappropriate by myself, I will just remove it and block you. But I do welcome open dialogue on this. Thank you so much, and God bless.